Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, everybody. Look who I found on my way.
Hello, everyone.
Guy, he was the side of the road. I said, "Okay, do you want to give a talk to us?" And there is no way how to say no, because he did the first talk at the zero when we started the show. So it's an honor to have him again with us to wrap up our year, a challenging years, of course, but a beautiful year in terms of gains of knowledge. And it's up to you. We need you to decide how you want to look at the cup. If the cup is half full or half empty. I prefer to look half full. And having done with us, having him here talk to us about all these lessons from 2020 is a gift as well, to help us to make our sanity check. I think that's it. That's the word, sanity check. We need to make our sanity check. But anyway, thank you very much, Dan. Again, welcome to your home. You know you are. Hey, Dan, look, a comment here. I finished your book. Very interesting. Will require another reading.
Don, look at that. Great to see you, Don, as usual. Thank you. Thank you so much for reading the book. I am thrilled and honored, and I would love your comments and insights. I love that. I love that about what we have going here, which is our ability to talk to each other and exchange ideas. So very thrilled to hear that. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, good.
And hello to all our friends out there in Ireland.
My friends from Ireland. We have our Irish friend, but he's located in San Diego, but he's from Ireland. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. Also, we do have friends from UK. Adam Osborne with us. Family Osborne, let's say, is here with us. Vanderlei, Roberta from Ireland. Kardec group from UK. Don from Chicago. I'm sure in a few moments we will have Darnell from Texas. So it's a pleasure to have you all here with us today. Doesn't matter which part of the world you are. It's important that here we are united today. And for those who are going to watch this video later on, I just say thank you for joining us. And now we have Fernanda from Milwaukee. So it's, see, all over the world done. We started reaching just Ireland. Now we are reaching out the entire world. So see, I'm aware we have friends in Philippines listening our show, in Australia. So it's good.
It's wonderful. It's one of the gifts that this pandemic has given us, right? It has given us the ability to connect with folks beyond our stomping ground. So very excited to be here with you guys today. I see Fernanda, I see Narciso, Jose, Vanderlei. Hi, Vanderlei. Good to see you, sir. Valeria, Adam. That's really great to be with you guys. I am thrilled to be here. And look at that. Look at that background. Can you see the background behind us? That Stevan has it. I think is it the Cliffs of Mohan, Stevan? Looks beautiful.
It's close. It's in the south of is in Dingo. It's the south of the Cliffs of Moher.
Ah, what a beautiful background for the day today and for our reflection. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to connect. Of course, I'd rather be there in person with you to give you guys a hug, but it's really great that we have a chance to do it virtually.
Yeah. So in order to start, and also we cannot forget our friends from Brazil. So thank you guys. Thank you for your time. And in order to start, let me do the initial prayer. So I would like to ask everyone to stop for a minute and let's raise up our thoughts towards Jesus, asking for our mentors to stay close to us, inspiring us, giving us what we need according to our merits, according to our need. Also, we extend these good vibrations to all brothers and sisters who are sick, in hospitals, who are suffering from anxiety at home, who are begging on the streets, those who doesn't have a shelter, a plate of food, or even a family to stay with them, especially in this time of the year. Also, we extend these good vibrations to all brothers and sisters who discarnated. May these good vibrations reach them, whatever they were. So be it. Amen. See, look, even Santa read your book because your Santa gave your book as a secret Santa.
Look at that, Narciso. That's great news. That's so flattering. Now I'm so excited and happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It's really been a wonderful opportunity to have a chance to talk to folks and see what folks think. We learn so much through Spiritism in general that transforms the way we think about things. So it's nice to have the conversation going and see how people receive your thoughts and your ideas and your concept, your understanding of things as well. So thank you for that. Thanks for gifting and receiving the book, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Don, as well, for reading. I know the other folks are reading as well. I am honored by you taking the interest in it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, good. So, folks, today, Dan will expose his points, and after this, we will open to a nice conversation. So important to get your feedback as well, your questions, your comments. So stay tuned. Dan, I spoke a lot, so it's your time.
Pleasure to be here. So I want to say one more time how wonderful it is to be with you guys. I always say this and I mean it. It's really a wonderful thing to be with you and to be connected in this difficult times. Spiritism has really given me two incredible gifts. One is a different way of looking at life, which has really transformed the way I think about the world and feel the world around me. The second one, was sort of unexpected, was the ability to meet people that I would otherwise have not had a chance to meet. So it really has broadened my universe and has filled my heart with joy to be able to make such meaningful friendships with folks throughout the country. And here we are again, connected on a Tuesday to talk about important things. And I feel blessed by that. So thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your care, your affection. I am so happy to be here with you. And I'm particularly reflective because, 2020 is coming to an end. We have no doubt had an incredible year, very different year than anything else that we can or could have expected. I think we can agree that when 2019 was starting, none of us really thought that we were going to have a year like the one we had. Just to quickly recap and put us in perspectives, We obviously had COVID-19, which has affected the way we lead our lives, has asked us to stay home and perhaps reduce our physical interactions, not necessarily our social interactions. I like to make that distinction, because we can be physically distant from each other, but we do not need to be socially distant. Where our heart is and where our mind is, so are we. So even if we are virtually distant here today, we're also virtually connected, right? So I think it's important to say that. But besides COVID-19, I mean, we had so many different things happen. We had a lot of social injustice happening, right? We had many manifestations to that end. You might recall that we had fires in Australia and in California. We had explosion in Beirut. We had Brexit that it's still giving of itself. We even had locusts in Africa. I mean, there were so many things happening in 2020 that has really, set us thinking. Sure, COVID-19 is still at the forefront of our minds, and to this day, we are still being asked, and rightfully so, in my opinion, to refrain from extended physical contact with people so that we can buy ourselves time to, have a vaccine come and help us withstand this very unforgiving and very difficult, enemy of sorts, this little virus that cannot be seen, yet it has changed our lives in so many different ways. So in light of this different year, I thought we would have a couple of minutes of reflection of things that we can learn from 2020, and hopefully that will help us carry our new thinking and a new way of being in 2021. Does that work for you guys? So you can always pop in your questions and comments as we go, but I'm hoping not to get too carried away here and have time for us to interchange our perspectives in general as well. So let's do this. Let's try something different here. Let's see. Let's do it. See if we can do this. Look at that. Fancy graphics. I got to move over so I don't get hit by the graphics. But here are some 5 spiritual lessons that I've been thinking about as it pertains to 2020 that have an incredible power to change the way we look and behave and act towards 2021. So the first one is this idea that we have learned in 2020 that we really are all connected. And there's a beautiful quote by Martin Luther King that I think is not only poetic, but very inspired. He said that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And I think during this year, we have seen this. Never has, I think, this quote been so meaningful in many different ways. We thought that this year was going to be a very different year than it was. And we have always read this quote by Martin Luther King as a poetic quote, right? We are emotionally connected, and that is all true. But I think we've also learned through COVID-19 that we literally are connected to each other, that what affects one, let me bring it back here, what affects one directly affects all indirectly. And we have seen this with globalization, international travel, that this virus, this COVID-19, has touched the entire world, all the corners of our world, without making distinction to gender, nationality, race, sexual orientation, what have you. I think that we can say that it has impacted all of us. Now, sure, we could go into some arguments and some conversations about how people face the virus, right? But the fact is that the virus has been everywhere, and there is no way to stop really its spread from one country to the next. There is no way for us to just create virtual borders and say this magical border here will prevent this virus from going to another country. So isolating ourselves from each other as countries, right? And trying to say, you know what, I was better by myself, may not necessarily be the best way forward for us, because all it takes is one person in one airplane, which we can never stop. We can never stop travel between places because that's how the world is. to really carry this this virus to different places. So I think that we are finding this very important lesson, experiencing in ways that we have not had a chance to do before. What affects you affects me. What impacts you impacts me. And that is a fundamental change in the way we live the lives that we live and carry out our businesses. Because I dare to say that until now, we have been able to survive and even thrive in the assumption that if I only worry about myself, if I only care about what's mine and protect what's mine or mine's family, everything is going to be okay. And in fact, that this is what I should do, that I should be focused on just watching out for myself and others around me. And while that's an understandable perspective, I think that we can say that that is not necessarily true. Because even if you can isolate your entire family from this virus, at one point in time, you are going to have to work with other people and come in contact with other people. And if those people are not protecting themselves, are not taking care of themselves, then you are also in jeopardy. And that's a really powerful lesson, because with this, we begin to understand that our actions have consequences to other people, that we have to be mindful of what is it that we do, because what I am putting out into the world can affect you. If I am not taking measures to cover myself, to cover my mouth, to protect myself and protect others, then I might be helping the spread of this. And while this virus may not affect me individually, perhaps my immune system is working out well, it may affect others. And that's a really tough lesson for us to begin to understand, which is, can we create space in our attitudes, in our behaviors, to fully realize that our actions, even the smallest ones, have an impact onto other people? And if that is the case, what is it that we are doing to change the way we lead our lives? What is it that we are changing about our lives to be more mindful of other people? You know, for those of us who are fascinated with Spiritism, you might remember that in the Spirits book, that seminal work of Spiritism, we have a wonderful question, question 540. And that question, I think, is a beautiful question, because in an answer, one of our high and elevated spirits tells us that everything in nature is connected, from the simplest atom to the most beautiful archangel, which in turn was once an atom itself. And I think that's a very beautiful philosophical piece, but we are seeing the practical development of that idea to understand that we are also connected to each other, emotionally and physically, of course, and of course, spiritually as well. That the law of cause and consequence really is true both in the spiritual and emotional realm, but also in the physical realm. So we are all connected. And when that takes place, we begin to realize that we have a greater impact, a far more profound impact in the world than we had imagined before. Sometimes we just feel like we want to change the world in many beautiful ways, but our actions every single day have impact. The way we treat each other, the way we're kind to each other, it all affects each other. So we are all connected. There is no denying it. It is our ego speaking when it says that we can live by ourselves and we need nobody else. That is just not true. We are gregarious animals. We are meant to be in community, in society. We thrive when we are together. And so the call to action here is, how can we reflect upon what 2020 brought us? And how can we change that which needs to be changing so that we can become better members of our community for 2021? How can we think of others? How can we think of those who perhaps need our help because they might be in difficult situations? Because at one point in time, we too will be in difficult situations and need the help of others. So I hope that 2020 will teach us a lesson in collaboration and empathy that leads us to think of how we are connected with each other. I won't spend too much time here because I think you get it. I think you know this, right? I just want to start a conversation for us. And if you allow me, we're going to go here to the second one, this one over here, number 2. Wouldn't it be cool if I could press it with my fingers and it moved automatically? I think that would be magical. But I think lesson number two for us to talk about today briefly is another important realization that has come to us is that fear still drives much of our actions. And I am inspired by a beautiful quote by Mandela. He says, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." And why do I say that? Because I think that this year we have also seen that fear was a big driver of our collective behavior. That as a society, we were driven to do certain things because we were afraid of things. I mean, here in the United States, we even experienced some interesting phenomena, and I hope you have not experienced, whatever it is that you may be. Like, we ran out of toilet paper, my friends. Can you believe this? This virus has really little to do with gastrointestinal problems, with stomach problems, but somehow people were so afraid of running out of toilet paper because they had to stay home that they ended up buying a bunch of toilet paper out there. And the same thing with, hand sanitizers to wash your hands. People were so worried about what could happen to them that they went out and bought as much hand sanitizers and toilet paper as they could, which again, it's counterproductive, because if you think about our lesson number 1, the fact that we are interconnected, even if you have all the toilet paper in the world, even if you have all the hand sanitizers in the world, if your neighbor does not have hand sanitizer, is not using hand sanitizer, then you are in peril too. So just in that moment of fear and trying to protect ourselves, we have been driven to act out of fear. And fear, while is a good motivator to get us moving in the short term, might not be the way to really help us lead our lives moving forward, right? So as long as we act out of fear, chances are we are going to retreat into our egos and into aggressive behavior, because all we are worried about is taking care of ourselves. And in the interconnected world, that just does not work, because what will end up happening is we'll end up fighting for each other for little things, hoping to get all of it, when in fact we need to learn to share. And that's a really powerful. And I think at the core of this fear that I think we should talk about is the fear of death. We are still very afraid of death. If there's anything that 2020 really uncovered about our fears, is that we are terribly afraid of death. And that is an interesting perspective, because as science progresses and more we have different areas that are showing and suggesting evidence that life goes on, we have not spent much time as a society thinking about how to deal with and prepare for death. I know that it's even taboo, it's even difficult sometimes to bring the topic up. It makes people uncomfortable. But if there's one thing that we know for a fact in our lives, is that from the moment we are born, from the moment that we come into this world, from the moment that we incarnate, we are destined to spend a certain amount of time here, and then we are going to eventually shed our mortal coil, as Shakespeare would say. We would leave our physical bodies behind and return to the spiritual realm from whence we came. So death is a certainty. In fact, it's one of the two certainties that Benjamin Franklin has told us, right? Death and taxes. And you can avoid taxes, but you cannot avoid death. And so what is it that we are doing in our lives to prepare ourselves for the idea that eventually, sooner or later, and we hope much later, right? We all agree this, we are going to pass from this reality onto a next one. And that is such a difficult topic for us to talk about, because everything in society that we do seems to be pointing us the other way. We're so focused on our physical selves and prolonging life that we do plastic surgeries, we avoid the topic, we do everything in the belief that we are going to live forever. Yes, we are going to live forever, but not physically. So what are the things that we should be thinking about that have the potential to change the way we face the world? Because if I am able to understand myself as a spiritual being, then the fear of death decreases incredibly. And when that happens, I am able to better think about how I should lead my life. Because if I understand that this life is a finite quantity, something of time that I get to enjoy here so that I can learn and grow, then I begin to know that I need to make the best possible use of that. And so the concept of death in many different ways refocuses us on how to best live. It's not just about watching Netflix all the time, although I'd like myself some Netflix. It's about making the best use of our time here from a learning perspective. And when we are able to internalize that perspective, when we are able to change the way we look at life, partially because of death, we begin to make decisions that are fundamentally different than the ones we've done before. We're no longer worried about things that just satisfy us here and now, but we become more interested in things that can teach us how to become better human beings for now and the long term and beyond. And so this fear that exists still drives us, but fortunately, we have many wonderful tools to help us get over this fear of death. And I always tell people, half jokingly only, that I'm not afraid of death because I have had enough evidence and I have had enough interaction with the spiritual world to know that the end of the physical body will not be the end of me. What I am afraid of, to be honest with you, is of dying, not of death. I am afraid of how I will make that transition. Will it be hurtful? Will it be painful? Will it take a long time? I know I will feel somewhat sad to leave those people I live here behind, but it's not lost in me that I have still contact with them and that I have other people who are also cheering for me in the spiritual world. So fear has been such a big driver in our society nowadays. People are trying to move us based on fear. It's a known tactic in this world to try to get what you want by focusing on fear so that people act a specific way. So I think the question that we have for ourselves is, what fears are driving our behavior? And is that the way that we want to act and live our lives? How are we going to make our choices? Are we going to make them, as Mandela here suggests, based on our hopes and our desires? Or are we going to be reactive to the world and just be fearful of it? I think that these are important considerations for us to have in this end of year session that we are given, to really think about, how do we want to focus our work moving forward? How do we want to do it? How are we going to lead our lives? What is it that we're going to focus on? And with that, I'm going to stop babbling for a second and move on to the next one, because we could stay on these for a while, where we can, share some examples of our personal lives. We can reflect upon that, but we just want to seed some of these thoughts and see if that resonates with you. I think another important lesson of, lesson number 3 here, which is connected to lesson number 1 and lesson number 2, is this idea that nobody wins until everybody wins. And that is a fundamental mental shift for us, friends. Say that 3 times really fast. Fundamental mental shift, right? We need to change our perspectives, because we are only going to be safe from COVID, for instance, when all of us takes care of ourselves and each other, like we were saying before. It's no longer, as we mentioned, about just getting what suits us best, but it's about thinking what is best for everybody at the same time. Because again, like we said with the example of the hand sanitizing or COVID itself, unless everybody is taking care of themselves and is well, then we are not going to be well, because we might be affected by it. And if those that we care about are ill, then we are going to be emotionally affected by it as well. So it really begins to beg for a change. 2020 has been whispering in our ears that we need to fundamentally change the way we behave. Their attitudes need to be reevaluated. And that maybe we really ought to understand that, beautiful passage from the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi in a different way, that it is in giving that we receive, right? It is in giving love and attention and support that we also receive it from others. Because when I watch out for you and for those around me, when I become my brother's keepers and you become your sister's keepers, then there are far more people watching out for ourselves than we could possibly do watching for ourselves, right? If we were very egotistical and self-centered about this, we could do all these different measures to watch for ourselves and take care of ourselves, but it wouldn't be as effective as having a group of people caring for you at the same time. So the mathematics of love work here, that true victory for us as a society is making sure that all of us have enough and that are well. And that's a very difficult way of changing our perspective on things, friends, because we're so used to just worrying about what is it that we need, that thinking differently that way, that saying, hold on a second, does my neighbor have this, or how can I help, is fundamentally different. And yet, here we are. 2020 is knocking on our door saying, hey, the way you led your life before is not going to work for this year, and maybe even beyond. Because if we go back to the way we had things before the pandemic, then perhaps we have lost an opportunity to change, to really reinvent ourselves and reinvent society and the world for better. There are some incredible things happening right now in the world. I mean, we've been able to develop a vaccine in 10 months, something that generally would take 5-10 years. When we put our minds to it, when we work together towards things, incredible things can happen. There are also beautiful examples of solidarity and collaboration. People taking care of others, people doing grocery shopping for those who are in compromised groups, people who are really taking a greater emphasis, time and putting a greater emphasis on getting to know each other. And that is a really fascinating process that we are going through, that I hope we do not lose when this pandemic is over, because it will be over, friends. It will eventually be over for sure. We are going to overcome this in one way or another, right? So how can we shift our mindset? How can we start thinking about collective wins? How can we start thinking about ways in which, when we act upon the world, we're not only benefiting ourselves, but our community or those around us? And not just our family, but those that we may not know. Because unless we take care of everyone, like, all of us are not going to be happy. We're not going to be healthy. We are not going to be fulfilled. So it is an exercise that 2020 has given us to learn how to think outside our box, our mental box, so to say, and start to think about and exercise thinking about others. And with COVID, this is going to be true. Nobody wins until everybody wins. We're not going to be able to beat this thing until all of us beat this thing. We're not going to be able to do this without a large number of us getting vaccinated. We're not going to be able to beat COVID if a large number of us is still going out and being careless and not wearing masks and not keeping physical distance, because it just takes one person to start a mini spread event, right? So responsibility towards others and our role in the universe are things that are going to come up for us over and over again in this time and place, for us to take a greater role in watching out for each other and watching out for others. And that's going to be really interesting. So that's one of the lessons that I take away from 2020 as well. And I know that I'm babbling here a lot, and I'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to speed things up here a little bit. But the next message that we want to talk about, that's one of these lessons that we take away from this year, because this is really meant to be a conversation, is, I'm coming to the realization that our relationships need work. We have been sent back home, in a manner of speaking, and many of us have been really uncomfortable with being at home without being able to go out and travel and do all these things, all these exterior things, these external things that kept us busy and moving and feeling accomplished in many different ways. All of that being taken away forces us to focus about what is immediately around us, ourselves and our families. And it has been really hard for many people to work on these relationships, to spend more time with their families, to deal with people that they were avoiding, because now they have to, because they're in the same household sometimes. And so there's a wonderful quote here from our spiritual friend, Joanna De Angelis, and she says, "The love is a permanent light in the brain and continuous peace in the heart. We need to want to do this work mentally, to really get better in the human relations. And we also need to have peace in our hearts and understanding that that is the way through things. And when I talk about relations here, I want to be clear. I'm not just talking about relationships with other people. I'm also talking about relationships with ourselves. Because I think what this pandemic has shown us in many different ways is that we need to sit down and struggle with our own demons, so to speak, in our minds, right? Our own challenges, our own history, our own traumas. And we haven't always done a really good job, because as long as we kept running around doing things outside, we kept ourselves busy from facing that which is inside. But that which is inside is the most important piece. That's what really needs and merits our attention. That's the work. That's the spiritual work, is reevaluating who we are, why we do things the way we do, and why do we feel this way. And that is, I think, the great invitation of the moment, is for us to consider, how is it that we are living with ourselves? Because we know many different stories. I'm sure you might know this, but as we have come back to the nuclear family, like living in the same household and not being able to go out, it's only natural that frustrations and frictions and tensions ensue. It's only natural, because now we are in a more confined space. We're living more time with each other. And that's an invitation for us to understand, why is it that these relationships sometimes are so hard for us? Is it because we are so stuck in our way of being that we want other people to behave the way we want them to? Is it because we really think that we know best? Regardless of what it is, it leads us into pondering, what is it about ourselves that we need to change? Because we have been looking to change others, but we cannot have a continuous peace in our hearts if we keep blaming the world for things that are happening. We can only postpone that meeting with ourselves. We can only postpone that difficult fight that we are going to have with us mentally and emotionally, internally. As long as we keep the attention outside, this has been our strategy for many, many, many years, many centuries, many millennia, we don't have to face what's inside. But COVID has asked us to go inside physically and emotionally. And now we are struggling with a lot of the feelings that we didn't even know sometimes that were there. Some of us are really anxious about what could happen. And maybe that's part of the fear, right? Some of us are really uncertain about things. Some of us are feeling really down and not self-confident at all. We're struggling with our shortcomings. And all these things are not bad in themselves. They're just a sign that we are going through a transformative process. The act of grappling and handling and talking about all these feelings with ourselves is an important milestone in our development. We need to go through this. We need to get to know ourselves better. We need to sort out all these different feelings inside of ourselves that we were putting by the wayside or ignoring or trying to ignore. So our relationships need work. And as we settle at home, we ask ourselves, are we making time for a dialogue with ourselves? Are we making time to ponder about us and what is it that we want in the world and how we are acting and what is it that makes us happy or not? Are we making time, friends, to think of ourselves as spiritual beings, for instance? Because it helps me, at least, to think of myself as a spiritual being, because when I do that, when I consider that I am far greater than my physical body shows, then it brings me a certain sense of comfort to know that, yes, there is a ways to go. I have much to improve, but I have the time and I have the support, not only from my friends here in the virtual world and the physical world, but also in the spiritual world. Because when I remember that I am a spirit, I feel less alone, because I know that I have spiritual friends, mentors, and guides who are cheering me on and supporting me. I remember that I am a creature of God, that I am loved by God. I remember that I have so many acquaintances and relationships from past lives that I may not recall right now because I don't recall my past lives, but who nevertheless have not stopped loving me because I have not stopped loving people who pass over from this life. Isn't it so? If we lose family members to COVID or anything else, we don't stop loving them. So why is it that we think that they would stop loving us from the other side, which now we have come to know in our minds and in our hearts that the other side exists, that the spiritual realm exists. So this moment of reflection of relationships is a very important one. And that has to start with our relationship with self. What is it that I struggle with the most? What is it that makes the most sense to me right now? What is it that scares me? What is it that makes me afraid? What is it that makes me happy? What is it that I want to do? And how much time are we spending thinking about the important things, the truly important things? Not what's going to be on TV tomorrow, not who's wearing what clothes where, not how I make more money because I want to have more things, but how is it that I am developing myself, and what are the lessons that I am having to go through? What is it that I'm taking away from this? What is it that I'm taking away from 2020 so that my relationship with myself and that with others gets better? Because when I improve the relationship with myself, it becomes a lot easier to accept others because I no longer need external validation. If I'm feeling well with the world, then I don't feel as insecure when I'm talking to other people. Right? Because I know who I am. I am not as worried about what other people think of me. I am not as guarded. I'm not as defensive because I am okay with who I am. And so one of the great gifts that this pandemic has given us is this ability to spend more time with ourselves and with our families. I know it has been excruciatingly hard at times because we're not used to it. But that's not a bad thing in itself to go back to that point when we get to reflect about who we are. Are we making time for ourselves to reflect? You know, I sometimes jokingly say to our friends that I wonder if we sometimes spend more time in our lives brushing our teeth or taking a bath or showers than we spend thinking ourselves as spiritual beings. And if we don't have the chance to reflect upon who we are and what we want to do, then chances are things are going to be the same. So let's spend some time on our relationships and our work. And here's the last piece that I want to talk to first today, really quickly. The last lesson that I take away from the 2020 piece. We have no doubt been affected by COVID-19, but what worries me the most is not COVID-19. The worst virus out there, in my opinion, is the virus of the mind. My friends, there have been so many conspiracy theories, so many different things out there that are baseless, that are not based in rational facts or anything else. They are just meant to work on fear and also to sow doubt and division amongst us. That we have been falling prey to this kind of thinking. Yes, I think we can agree that all of us are disillusioned with the world in many different ways, and that this world has been really unfair to a lot of people, and we need to address this, right, collectively. But what I worry about the most is not the physical virus. It is the mental one. It's that this idea will continue in our minds that the world is out there to get us, that there is a special group of people who want to manipulate us. And even if that was the case, then what are we going to do about it? And that's the big takeaway for us here. What is it that it would take for us to really free ourselves from these worries and this virus of the mind? What is it that we can do to fundamentally change the way we lead our lives to make it better for ourselves and others? What is it that we can start to take on upon ourselves to give less space to all these conspiracy theories, to all these things that lead to nothing but fear and anger and division? And they're not based in anything else, and doesn't really ask us to make it a better world. It just asks us to attack our neighbors or question them or break our relationships. We can think differently. That's okay to have our own ideas, but why is it that we keep making space for division in our hearts? Especially now that we know that we are immortal beings. Especially now that it becomes more apparent to us, if you're here listening to this today, I am going to go out on a gamble and say that you believe in the presence of spirit in your life. You have led to believe in one way or another that you are more than your physical body. And that is an incredible blessing that we all have received, to be shown little by little through reason and through faith and through heart and through rationality, that which we are will transcend and outlive this physical reality. There can be no better gift than to realize that we are immortal spirits who were created by a force so incredible, so loving, that's hard for us to understand, and which we call God, and that we were created to constantly evolve and grow in love and in understanding, so that we may take an even bigger role in the universe, so that we may even have a greater impact, and that we may also grow in love and the relationships. Because the more that we evolve and grow, the more that we practice giving and receiving, the more that we connect with others, our spiritual family grows. Our heart fills up with even more joy. Imagine this, my friends. Pick in your mind one or two people that you love the most in this life. Just think about them. Hold them in your heart for a second. Now, consider this. These people, 1, 2, 3, whoever it is that you have in your mind, they would always be with you in this life or in the next ones. You always have their love. Isn't that incredible to know that the love and the affections that you have built with these people will never cease to be? Isn't that an incredible feeling, to know that you have those people forever and that they have you forever in their hearts? Now consider this. Consider all the wonderful people that you have met in other lives that you don't remember, who also keep you in their hearts. The circle of love just grows, right? Now imagine this. This is a final exercise for us. You have the people that you know in your life that you keep forever. You have people that you might not remember from previous lives that you also get to keep forever. And here's an added bonus that God has given us. You get to meet new people along the way and develop relationships that will get to that level. So the more we live, the more we go through all these learning exercises, these challenges, this growth, and get to making new relationships, the more love we add to our lives. So in a way, in a roundabout way, God has been pushing us to have ever more love in our lives. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible? Isn't that a blessing? So as we reflect upon these lessons from 2020, we can say, yes, this was a hard year, but every change is hard. Yes, this was a difficult year, but change is always difficult. Yes, this was a painful year. We might have lost even people we know from the physical realm, but we never lose them spiritually. So how can we honor this time of transformation, this time of growth? How can we truly think about what lies ahead for all of us? How can we prepare ourselves for another year of growth ahead of us? These are questions that are hovering in the air, and each one of us will get to develop our own answers to them. But one thing is certain, it will require us to make time for ourselves, to meditate, to ponder, to really have a conversation with our hearts and minds, and to understand how is it that we want to lead our lives moving forward, and how we are going to work on our relationships. Because we know that we're all interconnected. We know that it's time for us to stop driving our behavior through fear. We know that everybody wins if we all act together. And we also know that our relationships need work. So if we're able to do away with this virus of the mind that we're letting in our hearts of distrust, of fear, of anxiety, of hatred for other people, then we are going to be well poised for a wonderful year ahead of us. And I venture a wonderful life. So here's to 2020, who has taught us hard lessons. And here's also to 2021, which brings hope and joy in our hearts that things can and they will be better. And with that, I'm going to stop babbling a little bit because otherwise I get carried away. Right?
One lesson. Just 5 lessons.
5 lessons. We picked 5, right? We could focus on one. We can focus on mine, but these are some of the things that we can think about. And it's really great to be able to have a chance to talk with you guys about this, right? There's a lot for us to think about and reflect on in many different ways. And I'm really grateful for once, for instance, is to have this relationship. I have my brother from another mother, Stevan, right here, right on that box over there, right? Which I also met through Spiritism. We had a chance to actually visit each other's countries and places and cities and spend time together. Mm-hmm. What a wonderful thing it is. And we cannot do that in person right now. But I am happy to see him, and I'm happy to see your names here. I'm happy to see my dear Elsa Rossi over there as well, right? There's Ana Paula. I see Joan. Thank you so much for timing in, Joan. Fernanda over there. Hi, Roberta. So great to see your name in there as well. I see Roberta liking things on social media as well. Thank you for participating, Roberta. It's really great. So you know what? Things are rough, but they could be worse.
Yeah.
Right?
And by the way, it's 13 lessons. It's not
13
5.
lessons.
5 will you present today, and 7 here.
Look at that. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you for that plug there. Look at that. Yes.
So 13 lessons. So 13 lessons we need to figure out. Yes, it was a tough year in terms of people we care about is leaving. But at the same time, we could see true solidarity among the people.
Yes. Right. And we see that, I mean, if we go back to the wonderful book that we talked about, the Spirits book, we also see the good spirits telling us that these tragedies, they do have something good comes from them, right? They do have something that they help us move faster towards improvement and betterment. Mm-hmm. And I think that when pain hits us, we really understand, and I think we ought to understand ever more now, that we need to change the way we do things, and that, you know, no one is immune to pain. You know, death can come knocking on a door, any of us, today or tomorrow, for different reasons, whether it's COVID, whether it's a plane that falls from the skies, that we cross the street, we have, heart attack, we pass away. There are many different reasons why we can just quote, quote, die, but we know there's no death, right? Yet we are here and we have a chance to do wonderful things and have conversations such as this one. So there is a lot for us to be grateful for, because we know that even if we lose our physical body, like I said, we're still going to be us. We're still going to grow. We're still going to go ahead. And how wonderful it is, I'm going to stop talking, to have the moment like this one that we're having, where we get to exercise that spiritual muscle in us, because we learn through repetition, right? So we ought to remind ourselves on a daily basis, if we can, or however often we can, that we are more than meets the eye, right? And that other people are also more than meets the eye. And that's what the value of us chatting about things like this and growing and exercising and remembering our spiritual nature.
Yeah. I was watching one of your presentations in internet, and you did, I think it was with the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth, like 2-3 weeks ago, something like this. And during the presentation, you said, we are not afraid of die, but we are afraid of dying. We are not afraid of death, but we are afraid of dying. Yeah. Conditions, how are you gonna die, for example? No.
Yeah, I know that's true for myself, right? I know, Stevan, we have read so much about the spiritual world and Spiritism. We are blessed with having so many wonderful books and wonderful mediums who have given of themselves so that we can have this interchange with the spiritual realm. And we know, or have at least an idea of what the spiritual world looks like, and that we are going to live. So those of us who have had a chance to work in Spiritism for a while are part of mediumistic meetings and have that, or had that interaction on a weekly basis, counseling spirits and talking to those who have departed. Like, it becomes pretty obvious that life goes on, because you can't make that stuff up. Like the stories and the evidence that comes to me are really incredible. But, you know, with all of this, like, my fear of death has really waned. It has gone away. But what I do worry, because I'm very me and I understand that that change takes time, is how that's going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That I worry very much. And like, will I cause like suffering and pain for people I love when I go? Right? I think those things still hold me back. But I think that's one of the gifts that Spiritism has given me, is this ability to start thinking different. And that makes me sometimes feel like I'm a little crazy even, right? Because I look at the world with different eyes. And when I do that, I no longer think the way I used to before. So the challenges that I faced before are no longer as daunting, right? They're opportunities for growth. And so it's really fascinating how we can shift our minds and then shift the way we see the world. And I think that's what Spiritism does so well, or has done so well for me, even though I am very cognizant that I need tons of practice and work, is to try to see the world with different eyes. Right. And when that happens, it feels a lot easier to go through hardship and different challenges. The other day, Stevan, I don't know if that happens with you, but I was reflecting about 2020, and, it has been a really hard year in many different ways, but it has been a happy year in many different ways too. Like, I have had the chance to spend more time with my kids, with my wife, with my family at home. And then an interesting feeling also came to me, and then I start feeling guilty about that. Right? Because I start feeling like, oh my God, there's so many people suffering out there. How can I be feeling happy? And I had to catch myself and say, it's okay for you to be happy, even during difficult times. It doesn't take away from other people's challenges or pains if you are okay in that moment. In fact, I think that's the message, is how can we learn to be happy even in difficult times? It doesn't mean that we are ignoring other people or that we are not sensitive to other people's needs. But I think transforming ourselves and learning the spiritual message is learning to be okay no matter where we are and who we're with and what we are facing. And for that, I'm very thankful to God for starting to learn that, right? And have the chance to rejoice and be happy to see you even when there's pain and hardship out there in the world.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, if you have any question for Dan, please write to us. We will still have like 10 minutes, let's say. We can. But then I have perhaps one statement and one question. The statement is, we need to stop to think about God's punishment and see the trials, the problems we face every day as a way to enhance and sometimes to expose our virtues. Based on that, do you think, let's say, by my calculation here, by mid of summer next year, we will kind of slowly going back on track? But do you think what we have passed in this about 1 year and a half will make people think differently?
Wow, great thoughts, Stevan. It's a hard question to answer. I think that, let's start by the last one, right? So do you think that this year and a half would really make us think differently? Right? Assuming it's a year and a half and not 2 years or whatever.
No, our assumption is we start back on track again mid of summer.
Yeah, I have hopes and fears. My hope is that it will seed something inside of us. My fear is that it may not, because I see a lot of people who just want to go back to the way life was before, which I very much understand. Right? Because I think we have a sense of normalcy. But in the middle of this mess, I see an opportunity for us to reinvent society, right? Because when we begin to be more sensitive to pain and suffering of others, and there's plenty out there, we begin to see that the world as it was before the pandemic was not free of problems. It wasn't working for everybody. So I think sometimes these moments of hardship and quote, quote, destruction, right, are moments of reinvention. Like we have an opportunity now to rethink many different things. How are we going to work, for instance? Do we all need to work in big cities? Can we work virtually from different places and have better quality of life, right? Education. Should schools go back to the way they were before, or are there lessons we can take here to have even better educational methods going on, right? So there are many lessons. But my fear is that we are not going to do this quantum leap all of a sudden. But I know that this experience will stay with us. And maybe people will not change their mindset right now, but maybe this is the beginning of a future mindset change, like a little seed that has stayed there, right? So that's my hope. But all that aside, I think I'm going to leave other people aside for a second and say, I'm going to work my darnest to make sure that I change. Right? Because at the end of the day, we cannot control what other people are going to do, but I'm going to try to take time for reflection and to really figure it out. What is it that I want to do, and how is it that I feel I should act and do and be different in this world to make this a better place, right? So I think your question is a fundamental question of our times. I think you nailed it. It's like the existential crisis of the moment is, what are we doing? Are we going to change? Right. And I mean, a year and a half seems like a long time, but if you think about it, it also goes by really quickly, right? It is not that long of a time in the bigger scheme of things. Was a year and a half enough for us to get the message, right? That we ought to do something different? Because we know things don't happen just by mistake, like, right? What is this moment teaching us and telling us, right? And have we gotten that?
Yeah. Well, it's really to figure out something, to reach a point, because we, at the same time, we are seeing companies, let's take the example, companies, they are reviewing if they need to have like that big office with 50, 100,000 people in the same, occupying a building, and the companies running with everybody working from home. Okay? And at the same time, we can see on the other end, a lot of the opposite. People trying to recover their past life. People trying to create conspiracy theory of conspiration. They're trying to avoid a lot of things. So we can see these two movements walking side by side. Am I wrong, or you're seeing something?
No, I think I love that. I think that's great. I think that every moment in time, we're all trying to do the best we can, and these are the moments when I'm really grateful for the spiritual knowledge and awareness, right? Because it starts to change our perspective. If we don't acknowledge the spiritual side of us, I can understand why people just want to go back to the way they were before, to what we sometimes call the rat race. Right. The idea of like, we just kind of have to go to that and go to jobs and work. And there is some security, right, in going back to what is familiar. But the question is, and I think I talk a little bit about this book too, on the book, is like, change, it comes from choices come from either one or two places, sort of. It's either through comfort or through conviction, right? We either choose something because it was comfortable and easy, or because we truly have a conviction about it, belief about it. I think that a lot of society has been making choices based on comfort. I think it's now time for us to make choice based on conviction. What is it that's right? What is it that we ought to do? So I fully understand and respect that people want to go back to the way they were before. Many different ways. I want to do that too. But I also am beginning to see that this is a chance for us to reinvent what was and make it even better. So I think that's the call of the times. Right. I think that, organizations are going to be led to think about this. We individually are going to be led to think about this. Consider this for a second. We have come together to do this vaccine, which is wonderful, right? And we have tackled this problem in such an accelerated manner that it's incredible. I mean, it's like a scientific marvel to have something like this ready in like 10 months. Like, what could we tackle next is my question, right? Is, like, could we change our view here? Like, what if we decided to collectively as a society, now we're going to talk, I'm going to pick something like homelessness, right? Let's spend a lot of time focusing on that collectively as opposed to just going back to our own rat race. Like, what are the great things that together we can bring about in terms of change to make our perspectives? And Faye, I am absolutely thinking about changing paradigms and perspectives. A voyage of growth and enlightenment is one of paradigm change. We have to change our paradigm of perception, of understanding, because we think that organizations and people are going to change the world, but that is not true. We are going to change our world by our own perceptions and our own actions. So I'm very excited about that possibility, right? And I also recognize that it's very hard, because change is very hard, right? Mm-hmm. And there's one sentence from the book that stuck with me towards the end that says, the price of change is letting go. The reward of change is the infinite ahead of us. We have to let go of some of the things that are behind us if we want to go to different places. And that's very hard.
Also, Adam asked here, do you think people are in denial or just overly influenced by excessive social media?
Both, my friend. I think that we are both in denial at times, and sometimes we are influenced by social media. But I would not say social media. I would say the opinions of others in general. I think social media has just exposed the fact that we have not done a great job in terms of critical thinking for ourselves. That we are taking in information from this outside world too easily and too readily without really thinking for ourselves, if that makes sense. I see so many people sharing stuff that they see on social media, and they haven't taken 5 seconds to check whether the content at which they're sharing is true or not. And many times, they are very dangerous messages. They're messages based on fear, right? And they're not true whatsoever. When you go do a little bit of research about it. So I would invite us to be a little bit more critical in a good way about the messages that we are taking in. What is it that we are giving space to in our minds, right? I have noticed, for instance, for myself, that this past year, whenever I wanted to disconnect, whatever it is, my natural tendency was to, can I just watch something on TV? And many times it will be on and I was not even thinking about what was going on because I was thinking about something else. So I started to decrease the number of hours that I would spend in front of the computer, and I started to read more again because I love reading. I forgot how great it was to read, right? In interacting with a book, many different stories, like you get to see that universe in your mind. It kind of helps me concentrate, relax, and see different things and enjoy myself better. So I think that was a conscious decision that I'm working on, to spend less time on taking stuff in that I will not remember, that doesn't really matter for me at the end of the day, whatever TV show I'm watching, right? Unless I really care about the TV show. I'm not saying TV is bad. I hope you get the drift, right? But being more intentional about where do we put our time, because where we put our time will dictate what is important to us and what we are going to learn. And so let's put more heart in social media, but less time into paying attention to what is it that other people are saying about different things, right? Let's be a little bit more critical about that. And let's break the cycles of denial that Adam also talks about, right? Because for as long as we are focusing on the outside, we won't be able to see inside.
Great, my friend. So I think we will wrap up here. It's over 10 minutes past. So I have no words to say thank you for your friendship, for your help with us during this year and previous years. But the difference was previous years you were here, and this year you are not here. But here in material, virtual, you are always here. But thank you very much.
Thank you, friend.
Because you have time to finish your book. Now it's something we can touch, we can reach. Because I'm witness. Because you say, "Oh, I want to write a book. I have 3 ideas for the book. I want to do it." Oh, and go do it. Like we had this conversation in October last year in Mexico.
Yes.
You think I will do? No, I have to do. No, I think I will do. No, do it.
Do it, yeah. It was December. There was December out there in London that it actually started. Funny enough.
Yeah, you did. There.
Yeah.
So and thank you for everything. I'm. The good news is either with vaccine or not, next year you'll be here virtually and in person. I want to say thank you to all our friends here. I will not start to giving names here because I'm sure you forget someone, but all of you guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Kardec Radio, for the opportunity. I don't know if Vanessa is listening us today, but I want to say thank you for the opportunity because she believed me when she invited me to do this, and she believed me. She believed not in me, but in Irish Spiritist Federation. It's not Stevan here. Forget about Stevan. It's more the Spiritism works here. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity and know people which are very have contact. They believe in me. So thank you very much. All the workers from SSI. They are doing astonishing jobs, talking with us here, having the comments, stopping their life. No, it's a blessing. It's a blessed year. It's a sad, but it's a blessed year. So, and also we had so very good shows like the Spiritism Max 2020. It was great seeing 16 people talking, and also other beautiful shows. So it's amazing. So thank you very much, Dan. And
Thank you, friend.
I cannot finish the year and say I wish a very good year for you, for your family, and would you mind to do a final prayer for us?
It will be my pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor. And what a beautiful words. I make the same words. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in this road and being here and spending time with us. On that manner, I'm going to slowly close my eyes. I am going to lift up my heart in joy and in love and in gratitude for the challenges we face, because we know that it's through challenges oftentimes that we grow. I'm also going to be thankful for the support we receive during these difficult times, during this difficult year, because we know that there has been a lot of pain in the world. But I'm also grateful that we begin to understand in our hearts that even physical death cannot stop us from who we are, cannot stop us from loving who we want to love, cannot stop us from being with those whom we love. I am extremely grateful for the bonds of fraternity, for the relationships that we have built over time. And even if we cannot be in person right now, we are here connected virtually and spiritually, supporting each other, cheering for each other's successes, rooting for each other during hard times, and establishing these beautiful relationships with people that we would otherwise have not met, people who live in all different places of this wonderful world of ours. What a blessing it is to live in these times, to be able to make a difference in the world during such a critical moment of our history. So we ask God for continued support, especially for groups such as the Spirit Society of Ireland and all the other groups here connected, for BUS, for Kardec group, for every other group that is connected here today, because they offer us safe havens in which we can exchange our ideas. We can practice our spiritual selves. And what a blessing it is to realize today and ever that we are immortal spirits heading towards perfection through our own actions, one day at a time, and with the support of God, our Creator, in all moments, in all times. As a last wish, we ask for the ability to reflect and prepare ourselves for what lies ahead for the year that is to begin, and to make sure that our actions are always born out of hope and love, and never out of fear or hatred, that we may continue to reflect the light that has been shown our way by those who have gone before us. We are grateful for the spiritual knowledge. We're grateful for each other. We're grateful for the moment and the challenges of the moment. So thank you, God, for all that we have. Help us usher in a new era in this world. So be it.
So be it. Once again, guys, thank you very much. I'll see you Thursday with our last episode from 2020. Dan, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, friend. Have a great day, a great rest of the year.
Okay, thank you all. I'll see you next Thursday. Thank you very much.